Most people associate pyramids exclusively with Egypt. Hundreds of miles south, in the Sudanese desert, dozens of steep angled monuments rise from the sand at Merowe. Further along the river, stone gives way to the immense, eroded mud brick walls of Kerma, the administrative center of Africa's first true sub-Saharan empire. These civilizations rivaled Egypt in power and longevity. Yet for over a century, their indigenous origins were excluded from the historical record. The creators of these empires were denied their legacy because early archaeology was guided by a specific, racialized set of assumptions about who was capable of engineering such a world. When early 20th century archaeologists like George Reisner first excavated these sites, they struggled to reconcile the complexity of the ruins with their own preconceived biases. They relied on the dynastic race theory, an assumption that native Black Africans could not have built these structures. They hypothesized that a northern race must have invaded and established the state. This bias led to a misreading of the archaeological record. Every shift in pottery style or change in skull shape was interpreted as the arrival of a new conquering race. However, modern bioarchaeology and genetics have now analyzed those same remains and reached a different conclusion. Removing the invading race framework allows for an analysis of how human biology and culture evolved within the Nile Valley itself. The earlier theories were based on a specific physical observation, a reduction in jaw protrusion and tooth size between early Nubian populations and the later Merowitic people. Scientists at the time claimed this smaller jaw structure was proof that the native population had mixed with an invading race from the north. This diagram illustrates the modern explanation, the masticatory function hypothesis. Skeletal structure is driven by environment, not just ancestry. Moving from a tough hunter-gatherer diet to softer, ground grains decreased the physical demand on the jaw, tracking perfectly with agriculture. This jawbone transition is a documented case of in situ evolution, an indigenous population physically adapting to their own changing environment. Biological data shows a continuous line from the A group and pre-Kerma periods starting in 3800 BC, linking them directly to ancient Saharan and East African groups. The Kerma Empire later functioned as a massive cultural hub, unifying various African tribes under a single political identity. This continuity remained through the 25th dynasty. While earlier scholars suggested these pharaohs were Libyan or Egyptian, their statues display indigenous Kushite features. Their use of Egyptian writing and pyramids was a sophisticated use of established imperial symbols to project their own power, not evidence of biological change. Political borders and technologies shifted, but the population driving the empire remained local. During periods of Egyptian occupation, the local population engaged in what archaeologists call cultural entanglement, adopting foreign styles while maintaining their own traditions. At the site of Tumbos, graves built under Egyptian rule appear typical of the north on the outside, but the internal arrangement is different. This diagram shows that when the outer layers are removed, the individuals inside are buried in a flexed fetal position on wooden beds. This is a traditional Nubian practice that dates back to the Kerma period. Within the home, Nubian women maintained local foodways and household rituals, ensuring the core identity survived even under colonial administration. Adopting the visual language of a conqueror for political survival is not the same as biological erasure. We can no longer view the Middle Nile as just a corridor for foreign ideas and DNA to pass through. The region functioned as a demographic and cultural core, a stable population that absorbed outside influences into its own biological framework. This text details the Merowitic transition and the development of an independent writing system, which marked a peak in cultural sovereignty. The variations we see in the archaeological record, new pottery, different tools, or changing diets, reflect evolving ethnic identities, not the arrival of new races. The record shows a single African lineage that has inhabited, adapted, and governed this valley for over 5,000 years.